What's up, guys? Are you looking for better engagement and better belt life on your Polaris RZR Trail S 1000? Well, SuperATV has you covered with our Rev1 Clutch Kit, and today we're going to show you how to get one installed. So the first thing we're gonna do is go ahead and remove the belt cover. In order to do that, you're gonna loosen your clamp here. As well as remove all of your clutch cover bolts. Once you have all your hardware removed from your clutch cover, go ahead and remove your clutch cover from the machine. When doing this, you will have to kind of pull it out sideways a little bit and just kind of rotate it up. Just give it a few wiggles. Just have to find that sweet spot where it'll clear the primary clutch. So just like that, as you can see, we kind of picked up on it and just kept working it out. It came right off. Like I said, you just gotta work it around a little bit. The next thing we're gonna be doing is removing both the primary as well as secondary clutch. First, we're gonna wanna go ahead and disconnect our belt. We're gonna show you how to do that now. So in your factory toolkit, you're gonna notice that you have this specialty wrench. On one side, it's gonna be a shock wrench. On the opposite side, it's gonna be your clutch tool. So what we're gonna do is take this clutch tool, and we're gonna slide it right here in either of these openings. And you wanna make sure that you use the side with the little hook on it. You'll just kind of slide it in here like this, kind of angle it and then pry it. Or if that's a little bit too difficult for you, or you may not even have your factory shock tool or clutch tool in your toolkit, you can just get a long pry bar. It works exactly the same. Just slide it right in here and just pry down. That's gonna open that clutch up even farther than what the factory tool can do. I prefer using the pry bar, to be honest. So once we have it opened up, the belt's good and loose. Now what we're gonna do is just grab the belt and just pull out on it as we rotate it around the clutch. One thing to be mindful of, you do not wanna stick your fingers in either of these holes, and you don't wanna get it in between the sheaths. Because as soon as that belt is off of this clutch, it's gonna close back up, and if your finger's in there, it's not gonna be good, I promise. If you're gonna go ahead and reuse the belt that you removed from your machine, which I kind of advise against it, especially if it has any kind of wear and tear. As you can see, this belt is not a perfect circle anymore. It's kind of lost its form. Usually whenever a belt does that, it's got an issue, whatever it may be hourglassed, or it may just be a worn out old belt. But you're gonna wanna look around here. And if you see a bunch of wear or any wear at all, while you're in here, you might as well change it. Sometimes we'll see the cogs get knocked off the belt, and also you'll be able to look at your clutches, which we're gonna be removing those here in just a second. You'll be able to see if you've slipped your belt, see if it's gotten hot or if it's glazed. If it's glazed, that's why it's gonna be slipping. So we're gonna go ahead and discard this belt. We're not gonna use it. Since we're putting a clutch kit on, you already know we're gonna upgrade to SuperATV's world's best belt today, which will have the link down in the description for you to pick yours up today. So for the next step, we're gonna be using a 15mm socket to remove our secondary clutch hardware. And then we're gonna be using an 18mm socket on our primary clutch hardware, as well as a clutch puller tool, which you can purchase at superatv.com. The link will be in the description. Once you removed your hardware, give your clutch a good pull. It'll slide right out, no problem. We'll go ahead and set this aside. Just go ahead and remove your bolt. And then again, we're gonna grab our clutch puller. Like I said, you can purchase this from SuperATV.com. Gonna slide it right into the clutch and thread it all the way in until it bottoms out. Right there, it bottoms out. I'll just do like a half turn back. And we're gonna grab a 27mm socket on a 1/2" drive impact. That's what I've found works the best. And we're just gonna hammer this thing home and it's gonna pop that clutch off. So as you can see there, just hit it with that 1/2" drive impact, popped it right off. So now that we have both the primary and secondary removed from the machine, we're gonna head over to our bench and we're gonna show you how to disassemble them. Let's get to it. So at this point, we've got our primary, secondary clutch, everything that we need out of our kit, some various tools that we'll tell you here in a minute, but one of the most important things to this installation is having this clutch compressor tool. Now you can pick this up off of SuperATV.com and we will put the link in the description for you all. So we're gonna start with the secondary. Just gonna grab it, line it up, slide it right down through here, just like this. And then next, we're gonna grab this little piece. Just gonna slide right down, like that. And you're gonna notice, you're gonna have 2 nuts in the kit. One secures the stud, and then one is gonna hold tension here and also compress. So once you've got your nut ran all the way down, you're gonna go ahead and grab your handle here, slide it down, line it up with the nut, and just put a little bit of tension on your helix here, which this component here is going to be called the helix. And we're gonna remove all 4 of these T25s. So once you have your nut tight, go ahead and remove your handle. And we're just gonna go ahead and remove all of our screws. Whenever you're removing these T25 screws, I highly recommend that you use an impact and that you're definitely gonna wanna use a T25 socket, something short, just like what we have going on. And you wanna put as much pressure down as you possibly can because it's pretty easy to strip these out. If you're having issues, what you can do is get like a propane torch, something handheld, and just gently heat around this screw. So before we remove our helix, I like to just go ahead and make an orange mark or whatever kind of paint marker you got on your helix as well as your back portion of your sheath here. Then we're just gonna take our handle here and go ahead and remove our nut. And we're just gonna raise this helix up off of here. Now we're gonna go ahead and remove our nut all the way off of our piece of all thread here. We're gonna remove this portion of the compressor. And we're just gonna grab our helix, pick straight up, set it aside, grab our rollers, move those to the side as well, just like that. And then our spring, just pick your spring right up, set it aside. So once you've got everything removed from your secondary clutch, it's a good time to go ahead, do a little cleaning. I like to use brake clean. It dries quickly, which you definitely never want to have any kind of liquid or oil or anything of that nature in your clutches. That's just going to cause them to slip, make your belt slip, cause all kinds of problems. So we're just going to wipe this down really good. Just get any kind of excess. This machine's pretty new, so it doesn't really have a whole lot of buildup, but if you have an older machine, it absolutely will. Then we're just going to take a piece of Scotch-Brite and just kind of lightly sand the sheaths here. There's no right or wrong way. You just want to get a good scuff on it. It's just going to help the belt grab. And if you have any rubber or anything built up on your sheaths, you're going to want to really sand that off with the Scotch-Brite. You want to ensure that you use red Scotch-Brite. You don't want to use sandpaper or anything of that nature. Again, only Scotch-Brite. So we're just going to go through, get everything kind of polished up. This is a good time for you all to do that as well. This may take a little bit of time, and we'll be right back with you. So next we're going to grab our secondary spring, which will be the purple spring. Slide it right down into the secondary, into the groove down there. We're going to go ahead and reinstall our rollers. So just like this. We're just going to take our helix, slide it right back on here, just like this. And we're going to go ahead and grab our compressor, sit on there like that, reinstall the nut. Now we're going to go ahead and grab our handle. We're going to compress our helix down to where our mark lines up, as well as our holes. We'll just reinstall our hardware. You want to make sure you clean your hardware off a little bit and apply blue Loctite to each of the screws before you reinstall them. So once you start to get close, you're going to notice it's a little bit of a pain to keep all the holes lined up. I like to get 2 holes lined up first, put my hardware in, then continue tightening, then start all the hardware and then fully tighten it. So once the secondary clutch is all buttoned up, it's good to go. We're going to go ahead and remove it from the compressor, get our primary, and do the same exact thing. Slide it on. Take our compressor tool just like we did on the secondary, run the nut down, put some tension on it, and then we're going to remove all our hardware. Just put a couple turns on it just to put some tension, just like that. And we're going to take a 10mm socket. And as you can see, our clutch is already marked up for us, but in case yours wasn't, put another mark. Just mark these out. That way you know, hey, that all lines up. If it lines up like that again, the clutch is still good and balanced. So I'm just gonna go through. Move all our hardware. So now we're just gonna remove all the tension of our spring by loosening our compressor until there's no more tension. So next we're gonna go ahead and remove this right here, set it aside, remove our spring, and we're gonna install our new spring as well as our new arms. So next we're gonna grab an 1/8 inch Allen as well as a 10mm socket and remove all of our clutch arms by removing the hardware. So what I like to do is I like to put my Allen wrench here on this side. Then you can use a ratchet or impact, it doesn't much matter when removing the hardware. Just remove it just like that. Just take your arm bolt, slide it out, and then you just reach up in here. You can pull your arm straight out and you'll discard it. And I like to just go ahead and put my clutch arms back in, or put my clutch hardware back in my factory arms and set it aside, just in case you ever were to need it again. Once you have your clutch arm bolts removed, I like to go through and take a piece of 120 grit sandpaper and sand out the holes. What we do is just roll it up about the same size as what the bolt would be. Stick it in the hole here and just kind of run it in and out, you know, the best that you can, and just get the residue off of there. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's just going to make it so this clutch is going to function perfectly for a longer period of time. So you want to go through, do that for each of your holes, and then just take a little shot of brake clean, just kind of brake clean it out. So next, same as the secondary, get a piece of Scotch-Brite, lift your sheaths apart, and just go through and just sand them down really good. Get any of that residue off of there. So again, like I said, there's no right or wrong way. You just want to make sure they're good and clean and they're kind of roughed up a little bit. And I'm gonna stress it again, only use red Scotch-Brite. You don't want to use sandpaper or anything like that. Once you've went around the whole sheath and got it good and clean, you're gonna want to get your brake clean in a rag, wipe the clutch down, get it as clean as you possibly can, and then we're gonna install our arms and springs. So next we're gonna go ahead and grab our clutch arms out of our kit, as well as our clutch arm bolts and nylock nuts. So on your clutch here, you have two different locations. You're gonna have a flat spot here, and that's where the head of the Allen headed screw needs to go. Then over here with the side that's kind of recessed, that's where your nut needs to go. So we're gonna take our arm, slide it right back into the factory location, kind of pick up on it a little bit. Take our hardware, slide it through. We'll go ahead and get our nut started. And we'll go ahead and do the exact same thing for the rest of our arms. Next, we're going to be tightening our clutch arm bolts. We're going to be utilizing the same tools that we did on our factory hardware, our 1/8 inch Allen, as well as our 10mm socket. One thing that I want to emphasize is that you're using a ratchet when tightening the nut. You definitely don't want to use an impact. If you over tighten it, it can actually crush the casting here, and then your arms aren't going to move as they should. All right, so as you can see here, we fully tightened our hardware. Now there's not a lot of movement side to side. That is not what you want. So what I usually do is I'll tighten it all the way, and I'm not cranking it down. I'm just running it up to where the nut touches, and then I'm gonna back it off about a 1/4 turn. Something just like that. And now we have a little bit of side to side play. Then you wanna make sure that your arm moves freely. And you want to make sure it's not spinning your hardware whenever you're moving this arm up and down. Ours isn't. The reason that we leave a little bit of play here on our hardware is so that if any dust builds up inside of the holes where the hardware is going through, it'll kind of work it out. That way it doesn't freeze this bolt up and then freeze the arm up, so the clutch doesn't have any issues. Next, we're going to go ahead and grab our primary spring, slide it right down where we removed the factory spring from, then take our lid here, slide it right down. Make sure that we line up our marks that we made. Take our compressor, then our nut. Just line up our holes. We're going to reinstall all of our factory hardware. Make sure you get all of them started before you tighten any of them. We're just going to tighten them in an X pattern. And just go around, make sure you got them all tight. Then remove your compressor. So now that we have our clutch kit installed to both of our clutches, it's time to get them reinstalled in the machine. So So we're gonna go ahead and grab our primary clutch first. We're gonna install this and torque it to 96 foot-pounds. Make sure it slides on the crankshaft. And we're gonna take our bolt, slide it back in, get it good and started. And I'm gonna take an impact and I'm just gonna run my bolt all the way in before I torque it. And we'll do the same thing for our secondary. Secondary sometimes can be a little bit of a pain to get installed because you're double splined. So you just kind of got to get it lined up. Right there. And take our bolt. Before we install our bolt, we'll want to go ahead and put just a little bit of blue Loctite on it. Just like that. 40 foot-pounds on the secondary, 96 foot-pounds on the primary. We're gonna go ahead and torque ours now. And then we're gonna be installing our SuperATV World's Best Belt, which you can pick one up from superatv.com. The link will be in the description. So when installing this belt, you wanna make sure that you can read the writing on it. Other than that, it doesn't matter which direction you put it on. So we're gonna slide it on the primary, get it up here kind of started on the secondary. I like to kind of get it rotated as far as I can. We're gonna take our clutch tool, get it in here, kind of pry our clutch apart. As we're doing that, rotate. Just continue working that belt. Just like that. Then you're just gonna spin it until the belt rides all the way up, just like this here. Next, you're gonna reinstall your clutch cover, your vent tube, and all the hardware. So that's all there is to it to install SuperATV's Rev1 Clutch Kit on this Polaris RZR Trail S 1000. To pick yours up today, check the description for a link, drop a like, comment, subscribe, keep a rubber side down, and we'll catch you next time.